Hello people, I am Jaby Koay, joined by Achara Kirk.
Hey guys.
Once again, we are in my car doing another movie review, this time for BATLA House. Yesterday it was for Mission Mongol, and like Mission Mongol, this is also based on true events, a true story, and with some things mixed up a little bit for artistic licensing.
Probably a lot of things.
Probably a lot of things, yeah. The first part of this review will be non-spoiler, and then I'll let you know loud and clear when we're doing spoilers. So I'm pretty sure, just like with Mission Mongol, there's really nothing I can spoil because it's based on true events. But, you know, there's like nuances within the film that maybe people don't know about yet. And,
right.
you know, so I'll try my best to be mindful of that in navigating this review. So, John Abraham is the star of this movie, as you all know. And I think that John Abraham, you mentioned this also right after we got out of the review, he's really trying to craft a new persona for himself. He's really trying to take on different roles, and we've been seeing that more and more with each project that he does, and I appreciate his efforts towards that endeavor. I appreciate that he's trying to bring these different stories to light and show you, just like with Akshay Kumar, show you who these different heroes are of India, who these people are that like really make a difference in elevating India and protecting India, etc.
Right.
You know,
and a lot of the time they're unsung heroes as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in this particular instance where you have someone who is accused of wrongdoing, essentially, for a fake, what is it called?
A fake encounter.
A fake encounter when, well, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but the point of the movie is that John Abraham's character is fighting to essentially prove that it wasn't a fake encounter, and not only that, but catch one of the bad guys who was responsible for that encounter. And so the story is really good in terms of like the underlying story, what's going on in the movie. I liked all that.
Yeah, I love the story. I think that was my favorite thing about the whole movie. The story itself is just so compelling and so interesting. And I'm so glad that it's been told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have some reservations about the movie. I don't think it was perfect. I do have issues with it. And I'm holding off on going into that, I think, until we get to the spoiler part, just because I might give too much away.
Right.
But what I will say up front is that while I appreciate John Abraham's acting overall, I don't know that he was the best pick for this particular role. Just like people had an issue with Hrithik for Super 30, I take issue with John Abraham for BATLA House, only because he's such a big dude. He's like, it's almost like for us, if you were to take the movie Seven, and instead of Morgan Freeman, you had John Batista. Or instead of Brad Pitt, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like these huge guys who were known for their action movies, where they were picking up cars in their movies and whatever. And so, you know, I don't mind John Abraham if he was more cut, if he was more toned down in terms of, but he's got this like big barrel chest.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's hard, like, to, when he's chasing anyone and he catches them for a second, I'm like, I don't know how this guy isn't just knocked out, like almost dead from a single blow from John Abraham's fist, because he's such a big dude.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
He does look really strong. There were moments where I'm watching him and like how well he fills out his clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not complaining because he's nice to look at, but
Yeah.
now I am complaining. It's just like it made it hard to buy him as that character just because of his physicality. Right.
And it's also easier to root for someone as the underdog when they don't look like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Good point.
Because he looks like a hero, and therefore he's going to kick ass. Like, that's what I'm expecting every time. And when he's not, I'm like, why isn't he kicking ass?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, ultimately he is a hero. This is about a guy who is a hero in the end, but you know, maybe he could have just looked a little bit more regular. Yeah.
Now, just like with Mission Mongol, like I said, overall, I appreciate the story. I like the movie. And I definitely think it's a story that needed to be told. I just wish that it was told in a more realistic, less commercial manner. Like, for instance, the item number. I liked the item number on its own. When we reacted to that, I'm like, this is cool. The item number in the middle of the movie felt wrong. It just did not belong as far as I felt
I could definitely see how the producers or the director or the writer, whoever, everyone involved in making the movie was like, well, we have this item number and now we need to find an excuse to shoehorn it in. And it felt very convenient.
Yeah.
But, like, I saw it coming and I was like, oh, that was smart how you shoehorned it in there. Just like, let's wedge that.
I just wanted
in
this
there.
to be more like Talvar. I wanted this
Yeah.
because this movie does seem to borrow some, whether it does or doesn't, it feels like it's borrowing some inspiration from Talvar in the way that it conducts itself, and I appreciate those aspects of it. I wish it followed that through all the way faithfully, because Talvar felt real. There's no item numbers in Talvar. There's no,
Right.
I don't remember any songs, any lyrical music they were trying to sell in Talvar. It was just a movie. Now, I get why they're doing it, and if you want to have your songs where people are singing and stuff, that's fine, but the item number was just too much for me. That's when it was like way over the top, and there were some action sequences where I'm like, yeah, I don't really think this is what happened. Now it's fine because you need action in the movie, but it's like it's like a confluence of things, right? You've got John Abraham, who was this big guy. I'm like, okay, if you want to have an action sequence, that's fine, but he's this big dude. I see him as threatening everybody around him. I mean, especially when he crushes that phone in his hand. I'm like, get out of here. Like,
Well, I think with the action sequences, it seemed very self-aware that they were like, oh, this is a John Abraham movie, so we have to have this crazy action scene, which is like really over the top. You know, I mean, it wasn't like super crazy over the top, but there were certain bits where I was like, is this really happening?
yeah.
Okay.
Now, what doesn't help this or Mission Mongol is that we're watching these movies right after watching an episode of Sacred Games,
Yeah.
which is an extremely grounded, extremely realistic portrayal of events. You know, it feels so real between the acting, the way it's shot, everything. And nothing is hyperbolic, nothing is exaggerated. All the action feels so real. And then to watch Mission Mongol and then watch this, it's like one feels very, very commercial, and it feels even more commercial because of this other thing that's so real. And so it's like, it's an unfair thing to the movies that I have to acknowledge, because it's not the movie's fault that I watched Sacred Games right beforehand. Right. They're catering to a certain audience, and I have to respect that. Sacred Games and BATLA House are not necessarily the same audience.
Right.
So I want it to be. I want Sacred Games and BATLA House to be the same audience.
Well, I think the story would lend itself so well to a more grounded portrayal,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
I think just because, like I said earlier on, the story itself is so interesting. What I enjoyed so much was just when things were sort of like falling into place.
Yeah.
I loved all the courtroom stuff at the end where you
can't
get
say
that
too much.
conclusion.
Yeah, you can't say too much.
I
about
won't
that.
say too
Yeah.
much. It's like you just get that conclusion, and you
Yeah.
have all of those like penny dropping moments where you're like, aha, and there were moments where like even the audience itself was like.
Yeah, they got
in
into
the theater,
it,
They
yeah.
got into it, and they were clapping and everything, and I was like, oh yeah, because it's very engaging.
Yeah.
You know?
The last 30 minutes is how I wish most of the movie was.
Yeah.
Because anyway, if I say any more, it'll give too much away. But like I said, overall, it was an enjoyable film, and I definitely don't regret watching it, because that was a story I'm glad I was told. I just wish it was told to me a little bit differently. Let's go into some spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyway, spoilers are going to be flowing now.
Okay. You've been warned.
Yeah, so it was right from the beginning that it felt commercial to me with the wife's monologue and whatnot. Like, I appreciated her disposition, and I appreciated the way her perspective on the relationship, where it was this kind of push and pull where she wanted to go because she felt like she was neglected, but she couldn't leave because she loved him and she felt concerned for him. And if I could talk to John Abraham, the thing I would tell him is to learn his Ryan Gosling, because like in the beginning he's kind of cold to his wife, right?
Yeah.
And what he's trying to do, I can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to do nothing, but it literally feels like he's doing nothing. Whereas like with Ryan Gosling or Nawazuddin Siddiqui or Saif Ali Khan, at least in Sacred Games, when they're doing nothing, it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels grounded, if that makes sense.
Right, because they're living a whole life underneath it. Like it's all informed by subtext.
Yes.
So you don't have to say anything because we understand exactly what the characters are going through.
Yeah. So that's my critique on John Abraham. Outside of that, like outside of those moments where he's supposed to be cold, I think that overall, given what he had to work with, he did a pretty good job. There were some moments that I don't think it's his fault. It's just like the very commercial stuff.
Yeah.
Like when he tells his wife to hide the pieces of the gun, that maybe that happened. Maybe that's realistic and maybe that's moving. But for me, it was like dramatic. It was just very dramatic. And I'm like, you know.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of drama and melodrama in the movie.
All his hallucinogenic stuff, or he's seeing things that aren't there, like the blood on the metal. I'm like, okay, I think I understand he's got PTSD.
Yeah.
It's just a bit much.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit too much time spent on the whole PTSD thing. I think after 2 times, I was like, I get it. You've got PTSD, but like, can we do something about this?
See, I didn't mind how much they did it. It's just the way they did it that bugged me. Almost like, okay, I'm sorry, going back to Sacred Games, you can see PTSD on these characters' faces. They wear it. There's and they keep revisiting the stuff that has given them PTSD, but it's done in such a way that feels like I can relate to this. It feels real. Whereas the PTSD is right from the beginning of the movie in BATLA House, where he feels like he's getting shot, and he feels like he's getting shot again, and he feels like he's getting shot, and he's feeling for the bullet, and he almost stumbles over as he feels like he gets shot. And then there's like this flash where he's like, he feels like he's drowning in this crowd of people as he's trying to swim out. It's like, it's so epic in the drama. I'm like, if they just dial that back by about 90%, I would have felt it way more. If they dialed it back 90% more, I would have felt it 90% more. If that makes any sense.
Totally, yeah. I think it does.
But like, this is me who is, I guess, used to growing up with films that are, when they're in this genre, that are more grounded, much more like Sacred Games. And like I said, watching that and then watching this, it didn't do the movie any favors. If I had just watched BATLA House, I probably would have appreciated it more, in all honesty. But again, I go back to, I'm happy the story was told.
Yeah.
The way that they handled everything in the courtroom up until John Abraham had his, 10-minute speech on the stand. I liked all that stuff. I liked the way John Abraham conducted himself in that scene, or his character,
I liked the ideas that he was conveying.
Yeah.
That it's like, we're not the enemy.
Right.
But I guess the whole thing is, it's a tricky balance with the police, right? Because, and you've mentioned this a lot as well, it seems like in a lot of Indian media, the police are often portrayed as being corrupt and bad. But I guess the point is that not everyone is. I mean, even he admitted that sometimes they plant fake evidence in order to convict someone that they know is guilty, just to get a clean conviction. But like, I guess there are
kind of glossed over that.
Exactly, but there are situations where I guess that happens a lot, and fake encounters are a thing.
Yeah.
But this guy is a hero.
It seems like you have one of two versions of police in Bollywood. You have you either show that the cops are terrible, or that the cops are amazing.
Right.
It's not often you get stuff like you do in Uttar Punjab. I forgot the actor's name. He's a really famous actor. Diljit. Yeah, where it's nuanced, where it's like, he's straddling the line.
Right.
And that's what you get in Uttar Punjab.
And that's probably maybe closer to the truth.
Yeah. I mean, anyway.
Who knows? We don't know.
I have no idea, but I don't know what else I can say about this.
Oh, I just wanted to say, a lot of the crazy pants action, as action sequences, I enjoyed them, but they seemed so out of place to me in the movie, because on the one hand, it felt like a very serious, like, this is a serious movie about the serious incident that happened, and then John Abraham picking up a dude and like smashing his head through a bunch of wooden pillars. I was like, what movie am I watching right now?
Okay, well, firstly, I was expecting that because I saw it in the trailer. And secondly, because of John Abraham's size, I'm expecting that to happen way more often. What the problem with the movie in that regard is it wasn't consistent.
Yeah, it didn't feel consistent. It didn't set it up that this was the type of movie. I was expecting more of a drama and less of that. Like, I enjoy that type of action, don't get me wrong, but it just felt weird, like out of place.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it felt weird is because it didn't continue, like in the car when they managed to snatch the guy away from them. I'm like, or when they're all crowding around John Abraham at the temple, or where that action sequence you're talking about.
Yeah.
Leading up to that, he's sort of surrounded by all these people while the politician guy is speaking.
Yeah.
And John Abraham's stuck. I'm like, how is he not flinging people off him like Rajnikant? Like, how is he not flinging people off of him like any action star?
Yeah, like a Jay Devgan.
Like a Jay Devgan. Like, how are people not just flying left and right, given his sheer size? I would feel like he would just bulldoze right through them, like no problem, because he's 12 people in one.
Yeah, and then he crushes a cell phone in his bare hand with his like big fingers, just like. I'm like, whoa, is this okay, this is very different than what I was expecting.
Right. There were some suspenseful moments that I enjoyed, though. Like,
Yeah.
I hope you guys are still listening and not just completely turned off by our opinion of this movie. There is this scene when he's catching up to that villain in the movie, and there was like a misdirect because the wrong person, the fake person got in the van.
Yeah.
That whole sequence I thought was well put together.
That was really well put together. It was thrilling.
I enjoyed the music there. I enjoyed the way it was shot and all that stuff. And even the way it was handled where they actually apprehend the suspect. You don't actually see it. It's done through like the newspaper thing.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. I thought that was neat how they did that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag ultimately. I enjoy it. I'm not going to give it a score because I don't do that anymore. But I would just say that I enjoyed it and it was worth watching for me, and I enjoyed the story. But there was just technical things throughout the film that bothered me.
Yeah, I actually did enjoy it. I enjoyed it quite a fair bit, but yeah, I had issues.
Yeah. So that's it. You guys hopefully enjoyed our discussion on this. We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Check out Achara Kirk and the Jabs on the social media. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.